Hello and welcome to a sketching tutorial video for TazMcCarthy.com. In this video we'll cover some sketching basics that can apply to many subjects and help you get your ideas onto the page. When you're sketching, it's very important to work in a way to which you're comfortable. The more comfortable you are, the more often you'll sketch and the better you'll get at it. Whether this means you like to sketch with pen or lead pencil, whether it means you use a ruler or you're entirely freehand, that's up to you. It doesn't really matter at this point which way you go. That comfort also extends to your type of style with your lines. If you're a person that likes to draw single neat lines, or a person that likes to build up several lines to achieve your effect, that's also fine. Whatever's comfortable for you. If you're finding that your drawings look messy, there's ways to make them look a lot neater later on when you need them for presentation work. Another thing to do with comfort is the way that your hand and wrist works. You'll find that your wrist has a natural arc which follows really nicely from there. Trying to draw in the opposite direction requires your fingers and combination of wrist, whereas drawing this way is just one joint moving and you should be able to get quite a smooth result. Keeping that in mind, if you're trying to draw round forms, don't feel that you have to do it all in one go. Feel free to move around the page or move yourself around the page. Once again, the most important thing here is to be as comfortable as possible. Keeping these basic techniques in mind, we'll have an attempt at drawing some sort of product. Now when you're beginning, it's much better to practice your skills drawing in two dimensions, which means you're drawing a view of something from directly front on or directly from the top, not drawing it from multiple angles at the same time. Keeping this in mind, most things are going to be quite square or rectangular in nature, and there's nothing wrong with setting up some construction or guidelines to get you going. So we'll start by doing some sort of mobile phone, and I'll just very quickly do the outline of how the phone might go. At this stage I'm not worried about whether it's messy or neat. This is just a construction work. This can be gotten rid of later on. So what we have here is a very boxy square outline for a mobile phone. Now no mobile phones are actually that square, but using our framework we've set up, now we can start to add in our rounded corners. Trying to do freehand from the beginning a really rectangular box with the rounded corners is going to be quite difficult. So there's no shame in helping ourselves out at the start. The important thing to keep in mind is that you're not trying to get the drawing perfect first go. When you're sketching, you're just trying to get your ideas down onto the page as quickly as possible. So I'll keep that in mind now, adding on some details to the phone. So we have our first sketch of the mobile phone. It's got some neat aspects from using the ruler, and it's also got some aspects that I would like fixed. For instance, some of these edges are quite rough, the gap from the side to the screen isn't even, some of these lines are a little bit crooked, and overall it's quite basic and blocky, but that's fine for our first sketch. Because what we now do is to get a new sheet of paper and put it over the top of the first. The idea is that we're not trying to get our sketch perfect the first go, but rather we identify things we like about the first sketch and things we'd like to fix, and we trace what we like about the first sketch and then change what we don't like from the first sketch to fix it. Another thing that you can do while you're fixing your mistakes is to add some complexity to your design. These buttons, for instance, down the bottom, very plain and square. So what I'm going to do this time around is make them a little bit more dynamic. Just like we did on the outside of the phone, we can start to add in some small curves here to build in detail. It's not necessary at all to do these on the first sketch. You can use this tracing technique to trace your own work as many times as you need to, until you've either built up enough detail and or fixed all your mistakes. So now we have our second version of the sketch. If we can compare them, we can see that the first one is quite basic and the second one has added a lot of detail, but there's still some things I like to fix about it. You also see that besides adding the detail, I've added some more features. I've got some different surfacing up here. I've curved the button style quite a bit. I've added more detail to the screen. I've got another part to the navigation button, but there's still some things I'd like to fix. So there's nothing to stop you from getting yet another piece of paper and improving from there. To match these buttons, I'm going to add a gentle curve at the base of the phone, and I'm just tracing the outline from the previous buttons. You'll find that you don't need the ruler as much because your original lines you can trace right over them because you know they're straight. Okay, we have our third version of the phone, which we start from the first. It's all the same size, yet we've added in more and more detail each time. Sometimes you might get sick of drawing your entire phone again. Say I was happy with this shape of the phone, yet now I wanted to draw something where the screen is, yet I didn't want to stuff it up and have to draw all of this again. There's nothing to stop you from using this technique for just smaller sections of the drawing. So using any bit of paper you have, I'll get the size of the screen, if I was happy with this, then all I'll have to do is put it underneath and everything will be the right size and I trace it on. I can use more paper on this if I was partially happy with it, fix what I wanted, or I could trace the outline again and do another one. I can use as many different sheets of paper as necessary to build up all of the detail in one drawing. One simple thing you can do to give your sketches a little bit more impact is to add some basic outlines and shadows. The first thing you need to do is pick a direction that the light might be coming from. The top left is generally a nice one, which means everything that's not the top left, which is the bottom right, is going to have a slightly darker line around the edge. This will just make it pop a little bit out of the page. The last thing you might like to do is to add some very subtle shading to the bottom right hand corner near your duck outline. All of this could combine in very simple ways to give your drawing some more oomph and detail.